Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping in to a beer from Martin House Brewing Company. We reviewed one very recently, but this is going in a completely different direction from that big Imperial Stout. Today's beer is called Watermelon Salty Lady. It is a Goza-inspired sour ale. Clocks in at 5.2% ABV on this one. It's been brewed with watermelon, sea salt, and coriander, and Martin House is based in Fort Worth, Texas. So Martin House is kind of like Anchorage, known for really excellent and over-the-top art on their labels. This one's probably the most subdued I've seen on them, but it's still very cool. It almost looks like a statue silhouette on the back, and it's this very bright shades of pink. Very, very cool. Get you in the mood, obviously evoking the deep, bright red and pinkish colors of the watermelon. Nice tall glass to go with this nice tall can here today. And we used this on a sour relatively recently, this glass, which I kind of forgot about until recently. I think it is by design for Hefeweizens, but it works extremely well on sours. And I can tell you, oh man, just having cracked the can still over a foot away from this beer, massive aromas already coming out of it. So let's get this one poured. This glass won't hold the whole beer. It is narrow. That is a fact. All right. Wow, yeah, that's a beautiful color in there. I'm going to slow down. It's going to form a head. Whoops, it is a sour, but we are going to get that poured in, let it settle. And yeah, this poured beautifully. Let's get this up for a visual check. Okay, so this is very much a light color like you would expect with kind of a Goza-inspired sour ale. But because of that watermelon in here, yeah, it definitely has this kind of pinkish orangey hue to it. It's very, very lovely. Very, very, very active in terms of carbonation. Clean off. Yeah, I mean, it's got just kind of the classic mix of super fast, super tiny, super fine, champagne-like size carbonation mixed with some kind of medium and medium smallish. But most of the really rushing activity is coming from the really, really small carbonation bubbles rushing up. So it looks absolutely fantastic. Let's get right up over this for a full sniff. Oh, ho, ho. That is absolutely pungent and it smells absolutely incredible. So yeah, there's a little suggestion of sour and tart, but this smells almost, it smells like the aroma and the flavor of a watermelon Jolly Rancher. That's what it smells like to me, which is to say it smells absolutely incredible. I mean, that just smells absolutely incredible. Watermelon is a fruit not used in enough beers, and I'm thinking that in the sour style, it's going to work extremely well. So without further ado, yeah, okay, look, it's one of those really active ones that's just going to constantly form a head. It's not a huge, thick pad of sour beer foam, and the head did its job, really popped out the aroma. So we're going to jump right in. Oh, wow, yeah. That is delicious. Wow. That's a really, really good beer. So, I gotta say, on the flavor profile, it's essentially what you would expect for what they did with it. It's a Goza inspired, so it's got the sea salt, it's got the watermelon, they added coriander. The coriander is subtle on the flavor profile. The watermelon is pretty dominant, though it's not quite as prevalent in terms of balance of flavors as it is on the aroma. It dominates the aroma. It's much more balanced in the flavor profile. So it's almost equal parts kind of souring tart with the watermelon and the salty back, that brininess that is classic with the Goza, and just subtle coriander. So the coriander is subtle on the flavor profile. You can't really pick it up on the aroma, but while the watermelon dominates the aroma, it's much more evenly distributed in the balance, in the flavors. It's very, very nice. In the flavor profile, it tastes a lot more like actual true flesh of watermelon though it does still present, because the aroma is so strong with Jolly Rancher, you do still get little pockets where, oh man, that's like Jolly Rancher, and then, oh no, it's like more like the real fruit. So obviously, you know, similar, but very, very nice. This is a nice beer. This is clearly, I mean, you could enjoy any time, but this screams of a refreshing hot summer day beer to me. It just does. This is very refreshing, it's very nice, and extremely, extremely well put together. So we're going to jump back in for a second sip. We're going to pick apart the body and the mouthfeel, let everything re-intensify, make sure I didn't miss anything. Then we're going to talk about the finish. But on first sip, I love it. Tasty, tasty beer. Take two. This is just a standard average medium body on a middle of the road ABV on a sour. Feels exactly right. Exactly expected. It's spot on for a 5.2. In terms of the mouthfeel has actually got a little bit of substance to it. This is not a typical beer style, especially in this ABV range. They would expect to have a massively resistant body. Indeed, this doesn't. But it definitely has a bit more presence to it. Like, you can properly feel it when you're agitating around the palate. It's got more resistance than, say, your average sour, especially for a 5.2. I don't think it's out of the realm, like so far out of the scope, like why is that so thick? It's just impressive. It brings some presence to the beer. So yeah, nice average normal body, but a bit more presence to the mouthfeel. It's got substance to it. You know you're drinking a beer when you swallow. In terms of the re-intensification, yeah, it just really lets you enjoy all the flavors again. This is a really, really good beer. I am absolutely loving the balance of ingredients on this, the way that they work together. It just still, second sip again, this screams hot summer day beer to me. It's so crisp, it's so refreshing. The flavors are big too, they're big and bold. So what can I say about the finish? Well, you don't expect most sours to be super, super long. This is actually a pretty pungent beer, and this is significantly longer than your average, especially for this ABV range on a sour. And there's two parts that are pushing it out. It's residual bits of sour that linger on the palate, and it's also the intensity of the salt and the watermelon. In particular, those two really linger with residual sours. The other thing, of course, on a sour beer we have to talk about with the finish is the drying effect. Yes, it's present on this beer, as you would expect, but it's not over the top. It's just a little bit of drying. It comes kind of first on the very tip of the palate, but it's pretty subtle there. Then kind of on the middle of the palate, a bit more intense on the middle of the palate. But it's got that kind of crispness. It's what gives it that nice clean finish. And yeah, just a really well put together sour beer here. This is delicious. I really enjoy this. I'm going to take my time, sip on this one, come up my scores. When we come back, we will get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was Martin House Brewing Company's Watermelon Salty Lady, a sour ale brewed with watermelon, sea salt, and coriander. This one clocked in at 5.2% ABV. Martin House is based in Fort Worth, Texas. So overall, just another really well done beer by Martin House. I love good sour. Watermelon is not a flavor that you find in a lot of beers, so when I saw this one, I knew I was going to grab it. I had a suspicion it would be great, and turns out I was right. So indeed, this is another one of those beers that did extremely well across the board. Only 3 categories on this one that did not get a perfect score, so we will jump right to those specific categories. The first of those was the finish. Now, sours are not typically a beer style that you're going to think of a very, very long finish, but this one was definitely above average. It was really quite a pungent, very flavor-forward beer, pretty much in all the flavors, coriander aside, but the big salty, briny back of the underpinning of the beer and the watermelon in particular were quite pronounced, and that did actually help extend the finish quite a significantly longer amount of time than you would normally find on a sour beer. This one finish gets an 8 out of 10. For the head and retention, this one formed a pretty good head in the beginning, very active in terms of carbonation as you typically find on a sour. The head did its job to really let the aromas pop out, and then pretty quickly after that, it settled down out of the way, so it wasn't a big, thick, creamy pile of sour foam to dig through. But yeah, all in all, just shy of perfection on this one. Head and retention gets a 9 out of 10. And then the final category that did not get a perfect score was the balance. Just brushed on this when we talked about the flavor profile, but in general, I thought the balance on this was great. It's just I would have liked a little bit of that coriander character to pop out. I mean, I'm sure it did something in this beer, but the other aromas and flavors were just so big and bold and pungent, the coriander really got lost. But other than that, and that's a minor nitpick, I really liked what I got, and indeed this beer was absolutely delicious. I only docked 1 point on the balance, gets a 9 out of 10, which does give a perfect 10 out of 10 on the remaining 7 categories. That's aroma, taste, body, mouthfeel, appearance, feeling and intangible, my subjective thoughts category, and example of style. So that does bring the total score on Martin House Brewing Company's Watermelon Salty Lady to a 96 out of 100. Just an absolutely awesome beer, guys. Martin House does really, really big beers really well. This was just another great example. I know they have a lot of different iterations and flavors of this Salty Lady line. This watermelon was really, really nice. It's not a flavor that you see in beers all that often, though after drinking this, I don't know why. It was absolutely delicious. I would recommend this one to any sour beer fan. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications, hit the bell icon. It is right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.